The sun hung low over the Arizona territory, painting the desert in hues of crimson and gold. Jonah Tate, a grizzled rancher in his late 40s, rode his mare, Daisy, across the cracked earth of his sprawling cattle range. His dog, a scrappy mutt named Rusty, trotted alongside, nose to the ground, ever alert. Jonah had lived alone for years, save for his animals, since his wife passed and his son left for the California goldfields. The solitude suited him, though it carved deep lines into his weathered face. Rusty's ears pricked up, and a low growl rumbled in his throat. Jonah reined in Daisy, squinting against the glare. "What is it, boy?" he muttered, trusting the dog's instincts more than his own eyes these days. Rusty darted toward a cluster of mesquite bushes, barking sharply. Jonah dismounted, his boots crunching on the parched ground, and followed. Behind the bushes, half hidden in the shade, lay a young woman. Her dark hair was matted with dust, and her buckskin dress was torn, stained with blood. Her breathing was shallow, her eyes closed. Jonah knelt beside her, recognizing the intricate beadwork on her clothing. She was Apache, likely from one of the bands that roamed these hills. Her face, though pale and streaked with dirt, was strikingly beautiful, even in her weakened state. "Hey, miss," Jonah said softly, touching her shoulder. Her eyes fluttered open, dark and feverish, but she didn't speak. He saw the wound, a gash on her side, crusted with blood. "You're hurt bad. Let's get you to the cabin." He lifted her carefully, surprised at how light she was, and carried her to Daisy. Rusty circled them, whining. Jonah draped the girl across the saddle and walked the horse back to his small ranch house, a mile off. The cabin was simple, one room with a stone fireplace, a cot, and a table cluttered with tools. He laid her on the cot and set to work, cleaning the wound with whiskey and bandaging it with strips of an old shirt. She stirred, muttering in a language he didn't understand, her voice weak but melodic. As night fell, Jonah sat by the fire, watching her. Rusty curled up at her feet, as if guarding her. "Who are you, girl?" Jonah wondered aloud. He'd seen Apache raids before, swift, deadly strikes on settlers' homesteads, but this woman didn't seem like a warrior. Her hands were calloused but delicate, her frame slight. Maybe she was a healer, or a chief's daughter, caught in some trouble she couldn't outrun. By morning, her fever had broken, and she opened her eyes. They locked onto Jonah's, wary but clear. "Where am I?" she asked, her English accented but fluent. "My ranch," Jonah said, offering a tin cup of water. "Found you half dead in the desert. Rusty here led me to you." She glanced at the dog, who thumped his tail. "I am called Najoni," she said, sipping the water. "Thank you, for helping me." Jonah nodded. "What happened to you, Najoni? That wound ain't from a fall." Her expression darkened. "My people, we were attacked. Not by settlers, but by outlaws. They wanted our horses, our supplies. I ran, but one of their bullets found me." "Outlaws," Jonah repeated, his jaw tightening. He knew the type, men who preyed on anyone, white or Apache, for profit. "How many?" "Many," she said. "Maybe 50. They ride north, toward the canyons." Jonah's stomach sank. 50 riders was no small gang. His ranch was isolated, but not so far from the canyons that he could ignore the threat. "You rest," he told her. "I'll keep watch." Over the next 2 days, Najoni regained some strength, though she was still too weak to travel. Jonah learned she was the daughter of a respected Apache elder, trained in healing but not in fighting. Her band had been small, moving to avoid the escalating tensions between settlers and the Apache. The outlaws, led by a man named Caleb Voss, had ambushed them, slaughtering most and scattering the rest. Jonah kept his rifle close, scanning the horizon from his porch. Rusty, ever vigilant, growled at every distant sound. On the third evening, as the sun dipped below the mountains, Rusty's hackles rose, and he let out a sharp bark. Jonah grabbed his rifle and stepped outside, Najoni following despite his protests. In the distance, a cloud of dust rose against the twilight. Riders, dozens of them, approached from the north. Jonah's heart pounded. "Get inside," he told Najoni. "Bar the door." "No," she said, her voice firm. "If they are Voss's men, I will face them. I owe my people that much." Jonah didn't argue, there wasn't time. He counted at least 40 men, maybe more, their silhouettes dark against the fading light. They weren't riding fast, but their purpose was clear. Jonah loaded his rifle and checked his revolver. His cabin was defensible, but against 50 men? He'd need a miracle. As the riders drew closer, Jonah saw their leader, a tall man with a black hat and a scar across his cheek. Caleb Voss, no doubt. The gang reined up 100 yards from the cabin, spreading out in a loose arc. Voss raised a hand, and a man beside him called out, "Tate. We know you're in there. Hand over the Apache girl, and we'll let you live." Jonah glanced at Najoni, who stood beside him, her eyes blazing with defiance. "They think I'm their prize," she whispered. "They want to sell me, or worse." "Ain't happening," Jonah growled. He stepped onto the porch, rifle raised. "Voss. You're on my land. Turn around, or I'll put a bullet in you." Voss laughed, a cold, grating sound. "You're one man, Tate. We're 50. You really want to die for some Indian?" Jonah's finger tightened on the trigger, but before he could respond, Najoni stepped forward, her voice carrying across the distance. "You will not take me, Voss. My people will come for you. The desert will swallow you." The outlaws laughed, but Jonah noticed a few shift uneasily in their saddles. The Apache had a reputation for vengeance, and the desert was unkind to those who didn't respect it. Voss, however, seemed unfazed. "Last chance, Tate," he shouted. "Give her up, or we burn your ranch to the ground." Jonah's mind raced. He couldn't fight 50 men alone, but he couldn't surrender Najoni either. She'd saved herself once, and he'd be damned if he let her fall now. Then he heard it, a low, rhythmic thud, like distant thunder. Rusty's ears perked up, and Najoni's eyes widened. "Horses," she whispered. "Many horses." From the south, another group of riders appeared, moving fast. Jonah's heart sank, thinking Voss had reinforcements, but Najoni grabbed his arm. "My people," she said, hope flickering in her voice. The newcomers were Apache warriors, their faces painted, their horses lean and swift. They numbered perhaps 20, far fewer than Voss's gang, but their arrival shifted the air. Voss's men turned, shouting to each other, their formation breaking as the Apache closed in. Jonah didn't wait. He fired his rifle, the shot echoing across the desert. The bullet grazed Voss's shoulder, and the outlaw cursed, drawing his pistol. Chaos erupted. The Apache charged, their war cries piercing the night, and Voss's men fired wildly, caught between Jonah's cabin and the oncoming warriors. Najoni grabbed a knife from Jonah's table and stood ready, her eyes fierce. "Stay behind me," Jonah said, but she shook her head. "I fight with you," she said. The battle was brutal but swift. The Apache fought with precision, their arrows and knives finding targets with deadly accuracy. Jonah picked off outlaws from the porch, his aim steady despite the chaos. Rusty darted into the fray, snapping at horses' legs, causing panic. Voss's men, unprepared for the ambush, began to falter. Some fled into the desert, only to be cut down by Apache riders. Voss himself was a different matter. He fought like a cornered animal, his pistol blazing. Jonah saw him aim at an Apache warrior and fired again, this time hitting Voss's leg. The outlaw fell, screaming, but still managed to crawl toward cover. Before Jonah could finish him, Nijoni darted forward, her knife flashing. She knelt beside Voss, her blade at his throat. "You took my family," she said, her voice trembling with rage. "You will take no more." Voss sneered, but before he could speak, an Apache warrior rode up, his spear raised. Nijoni stepped back, and the warrior ended Voss with a single thrust. The remaining outlaws scattered, their morale broken. As the dust settled, the Apache leader, a stern man with silver-streaked hair, approached the cabin. Nijoni spoke to him in their language, her words rapid and emotional. The leader nodded, then turned to Jonah. "You sheltered my daughter," he said in halting English. "You fought for her. We owe you a debt." Jonah shook his head. "Did what was right. She's a brave one." Nijoni translated,